Hey guys, Angus from Spotted Hog Airsoft here today with another Airsoft video review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Elite Force H&K MP5K Airsoft AEG. It's been a while since I've gotten my hands on an MP5K, so let's go ahead and hop right into this video review. Alright, so hopping directly into the video review here, let's go ahead and start things off by covering this MP5K's external construction. Now overall this MP5K is more of a Sportline style AEG, and what I mean by that is it's essentially constructed entirely out of plastic. Now that's good for a couple things. Number one, it does keep the cost down a bit, therefore this AEG is a little bit cheaper. And also, when it comes to plastic on a gun like this, which is more so meant to be for say CQB or maybe as a secondary style weapon in the field, it's great to have a plastic construction. It's a lot more lightweight, more easily maneuverable than say a heavy clunky metal gun, so that certainly does come in handy. Basically the entire thing is constructed of a pretty high quality plastic component. It doesn't feel cheap or anything like that. It feels pretty solid and sturdy overall. The only metal pieces in the gun, however, would be your sling mounts, all of the screws and pins that hold the gun together. No cheap plastic there holding your weapon together, you do get metal. And your magazine is also constructed of metal. Everything else, including your upper and lower receiver, iron sights, pistol grip up front, the foregrip up front, as well as the pistol grip, and obviously that orange tip on the front, those are all constructed of plastic. So you do get a heavy plastic construction, but like I said, pretty practical for what this gun is made for. There are some nice external trademarks as well, which we'll zoom in on for you now. Now the most important engraving on this AEG that I opted to show would be the one that states HK MP5K located on the rear of the left side of the gun. Now this is engraved so it's there to stay. Maybe you could fill it in with a nice white crayon to make it really pop, but importantly it's not just painted on, it's engraved so it's there to stay. There are a couple other engravings such as just caliber 6mm BB, but obviously this H&K one is the most important. You do also have another small engraving located on the right side of the gun, just reading license trademark of Heckler & Koch. Now as far as internals go, you guys know I'm really no internals expert. However, I can tell you this gun does have a metal gearbox inside, and overall I've never really had any issues with Elite Force. I've always found them to be good quality control company, and out of the box my AEGs have always been shooting pretty darn good, as you guys will see later on in the video. Now speaking of internals, obviously you want to be able to power your electric gun. Therefore you are going to need a battery, and you're probably wondering on this little MP5K, where's the battery going to go? Obviously you can't really fit anything in that little handguard up front, and there's no stock to store anything. So therefore, your battery is actually going to be held in a hollow space up top. In order to access this, first thing you want to do is remove these two pins. They slide out pretty easily, in fact a little too easily if you ask me, and at that point you can go ahead and remove this rear sort of butt plate, if that's what you'd like to call it. At that point you would reveal the hollow space up top where you would then slide your included stick-type battery inside. Now once you've gone and done that, you're probably wondering, well, where do I connect the connectors to? Well, in order to do that, you need to remove the front handguard of your weapon, which is pretty simple. You'd want to remove this pin here, and at that point you would be able to remove your entire handguard up front, revealing your small type connector that is attached to the gun. Now here's where you'd go ahead and attach your connectors together. This is where the battery can get a little bit annoying because you do really have to work with the wires in order to get them in there, and especially then to get the handguard back on once you have actually gotten the wires connected. Then you should be able to carefully and with a little bit of difficulty pop the handguard back on like so, and at that point your battery will be installed and you can reinsert all of your pins. Overall this battery is a little difficult to put in, especially if you were in the field under fire. It would certainly be difficult, especially because you kind of have to maneuver the wires a certain way in order to get this front handguard piece back on. But it's kind of your only option when you're running a gun as small as this. Now this MP5K does have an ambidextrous fire selector switch. The selector switch is not only located on the left side of the gun, but also on the right side of the AEG as well. You do have the standard 3 settings: safe, semi, and auto all the way at the top. Overall, this is a pretty nice selector switch. It does give you a loud, clear click when it locks onto a setting, letting you know that you're on your selected fire setting. It's pretty sturdy as well. It does need a little bit of force to move it, therefore you shouldn't be slipping in between settings when you're trying to fire. Overall, simple, good quality ambidextrous fire selector. Now when it comes to the MP5K's magazines, obviously this thing uses your standard MP5 style airsoft mags. In order to release the magazine from the gun, you'd simply push on the mag release located just in front of the trigger guard, and at that point it'll drop out, so be prepared to catch it. Your included magazine is your standard MP5 style airsoft high cap. It only has one rather small engraved trademark located down at the bottom. Simply reads 9mm times 19. However, this airsoft version does hold 200 6mm airsoft BBs, give or take a few. It works like any other MP5 high cap. You'd wind it with the gear down at the bottom. Obviously, the BBs would feed through the top, and you do have that rather small, annoying trap door here, where you could feed your BBs through to load up the magazine. Overall, these MP5 mags tend to feed okay. They're not my favorites, so maybe you should look into some mid caps or something like that, because the high cap MP5 mags, a little annoying constantly winding them. Now, when you want to reinsert the magazine into the gun, you'd simply take the lip of the mag, make sure it's facing forward towards the front of the AEG, and snap it in like so. You'll get that nice click letting you know that it is locked in there. There's a little bit of wobble, but really nothing too significant. Moving onward to the AEG's iron sights, they're pretty much your standard MP5 style sights. Your rear sight is your standard drum sight, which is pretty simple. It is a swivel kind where you could simply turn it like so, say you wanted to decrease or increase the size of the hole you're looking through to aim up with your front sight. It is adjustable for windage and elevation simply by loosening or tightening the screw on the top and on the right side of the sight itself. Obviously, the rear sight is meant to line up with your front sight, which in turn is just an enclosed, unadjustable sight post. Overall, these are pretty accurate to the gun, and hey, out of the box they are what you're stuck with. My recommendation though would be maybe buy an MP5 style scope mount, slap it on here, and place a nice optic on this AEG. That is, of course, if you don't like your iron sights just enough. When the battery's installed, the gun's charging handle can't even move, so obviously this isn't going to be how you access your hop-up. Instead, you would adjust your hop-up by pulling or pushing on this black piece sticking out here into where the battery connectors are. Now, in order to adjust your hop-up, say you wanted to reduce it, you would push it more so into the gun like so, and if you wanted to add hop, you would pull it outward like so. This is actually pretty easy to do. It's just difficult with the fact that you would then have to take the handguard of the gun off and put it back on. Therefore, kind of hard to adjust in the field, in my opinion, with the annoyance of the battery wires in there, so maybe something you'd want to do off the field beforehand. How effective is this hop-up, though? We're going to go ahead and put that hop-up to the test right now in the performance test portion of this airsoft video review. Not only are we going to be chronoing this AEG to see how hard and fast it's shooting, but we'll also be taking a few shots downrange at a target to see just how effective that annoying to access hop-up is. So with that being said, what are we waiting for? Let's go! For the chronograph portion of the video, I loaded up with 0.2 gram BBs and installed the included 8.4 volt 1200 milliamp stick type battery. Overall, the results we saw were pretty good in my opinion, seeing as how this gun is more designed for CQB. We saw exactly what we wanted FPS-wise at right around the 325 to 335 feet per second area, pretty consistently, 328 to 333, stuff like that. As far as the rate of fire went, we saw almost 700 rounds per minute on an 8.4 volt and about 11 rounds per second. So overall, the rate of fire perfectly respectable. Unfortunately, though, as far as battery space goes, the 8.4 volt is about all you can fit. Not sure you could really cram a 9.6 volt stick type up top in that narrow space. Overall, though, the chrono results were pretty pleasing. For the accuracy test portion of the video, I loaded up with Elite Force 0.25 gram BBs, kept the same included 8.4 volt stick type battery, and set up at a CQB style distance of about 80 feet away. Overall, I was pretty pleased with the accuracy of this weapon. Despite some minor feeding issues to start off, had to remove the mag, shake it a bit to unjam some BBs, and then slide it back in, I was pretty pleased overall. The accuracy on semi-auto, BBs almost entirely came into contact with the target, otherwise they stayed tight around it. And full auto, we pretty much saw perfect accuracy the entire time, BBs staying in a straight line and coming into contact with the target. So certainly something I would personally recommend to use in CQB, seeing as how that accuracy seems to be pretty much dot on with. Alright, so with those final shots being fired, let's go ahead and hop into the final conclusion of this video review. Overall, the Elite Force MP5K struck me as a gun that would be good as a CQB weapon or as a secondary when you're out in the woodland style games. There are a couple things that I didn't necessarily like though. I understand with the MP5K, this is your battery space up here and that's what you got. You can store a stick type. That being said, I'm the guy who wants to change his battery in the field, and with that being said, this gun, you really can't do that well. It's a fight to get the handguard back on. You really got to make sure those wires are in there carefully or you could accidentally tear them or something like that. Something to go along with that is, let's say I've taken taken the time to adjust my hop up. Now I got to fight to get the handguard and the wires in there. I might actually accidentally push it in or push it out unadjusted or something like that in the process. So that being said, the battery space kind of irks me a little bit. Also the fact that it's able to fit an 8.4 volt, but I doubt you can fit a 9.6 volt in there is certainly something that some people could complain about as well. But talking about performance, overall that was pretty good. We saw the FPS right where we want it for CQB, rate of fire was respectable, and the accuracy was pretty darn good, especially at those closer ranges which you would be using for a secondary or CQB style weapon. Overall, the AEG is put together rather nicely. When I was putting the battery in again, I had some couple issues, almost like the outer barrel was kind of bending, so this part of the gun might not be as sturdy as the rest of it overall. The magazine is again a preference for me. I don't necessarily like the MP5 mag high caps because of all the winding you have to do and the fact that I do get some feeding issues out of them once in a while. Not to mention that little trapdoor is really annoying to load BBs into. Otherwise, though, this gun out of the box was pretty darn nice. I could definitely see it set up as a CQB style weapon. Might have to use it myself sometime soon, or as a secondary for somebody who wants that automatic but small and easily maneuverable sidearm to go along with it. So overall, not a bad gun, just a lot of preferences for me. I wish the battery space was bigger. Maybe they'd make a little stock that you could attach to it that'd be stubby. You could fit a tiny brick in there. I'd be happy. But overall, not a bad gun if you're looking for CQB or secondary. With that being said, guys, thanks for watching.